I know is now being linked to Crystal Palace was the first name that I saw. Brentford also potentially coming in for him. He's the second highest scorer in the Turkish league. And you and I know, Charlie, you went through this. When you moved from Sweden to France, right? You were at Hammarby in Sweden, right? And then you moved to Sochaux. Where were you at on the scoring charts when you left Sweden? I guess it was in the end of a season, wasn't it? It was off season. You're mid-season in Sweden.
When I finished the previous season, I think I was fourth in the scoring chart, third or fourth in the league. I had 17 goals in all competitions.
And how old were you at that point?
22. 22.
So Daryl Dike's age. Haji Wright's a couple years older than that, 24. But it doesn't, like, I guess what I'm getting at is the Turkish league, people can say wherever it fits into the equation of positions in the Champions League and all that. But being the second top scorer in any league in Europe, you've got a lot of people looking at you. Even if you take American out of it, you're a second top scorer in any league in Europe. You've got clubs looking at you, right?
100%.
Like it's legitimate interest, not like us creating the hype around an American player.
No. Your scoring record. He has a great scoring record in Turkey. 2, he's part of a World Cup roster. When just being associated to the World Cup, knowing that you were on a roster and you played, that brings your value up and people know you have a certain quality. So I think when you combine those two in his age and his upside, and he's athletic, he's strong, why wouldn't you take a chance on him? This is a player that you think you can develop and potentially keep him and have him score a lot of goals or move him on in 3-4 years if he develops. So if I'm him and I'm going through this process, just the way I remember it, I looked at the clubs I was going to and who I was competing with. If they had a striker in place that's playing, scoring goals, and I'm not, and you're not going to be playing over him, is that a place you want to go? No. I love competition, but coming in off the bat, you are second string, you are the replacement. And if he goes to Brentford, he is not playing over Tony. Tony is a 26-year-old striker who's scoring goals for fun, right? So that's not a long-term play, not a move. Now, Crystal Palace, on the other hand, doesn't have a legitimate striker who's guaranteed the rest of the matches this season. So to play there and play along
and Tony,
Zaha,
by the way, and Tony, by the way, was like controversially left off of the World Cup roster, like, or at least in a lot of people's eyes, like deserved to be there. So you're right in that sense that, like, but again, like he's gonna get either pay him whatever 8 million, 10 million for him, and he's gonna get the bag, and that's hard again to turn down. I just hope that he's in a place, and he's got the physical profile, right? When we talked about Brendan Aronson, Tyler Adams, who else? Josh Sargent. It's do they have the physical DNA or makeup to be able to compete physically in the Premier League, right? And that was the concern with, could Tyler Adams do it, right? Because he's not the biggest body you see in the space, and he's been just fine. Brendan Aronson goes in and he's struggling on some physical aspects, but is also willing to like physically compete. But when you think about Haji Wright, you're not thinking like, does he have the physical abilities to step into the Premier League and deal with, 6'4", 6'5" center backs that are going to be up his ass the entire game.
Yeah. And cool tromboner. I see that you had Tony is also under investigation with the FA. That is correct, but
That's
there's
true.
nothing has been
he might be betting on Haji Wright to come odds on Haji Wright winning Brentford.
But nothing is set in stone. So unless the manager said, hey, we're going to play with 2 strikers and I envision you playing alongside Tony, then no, I'm not going there if I'm Haji Wright, especially if you can go to another club within the Premier League. Now, if Brentford's the only option, then I'm going to Brentford. But I'm assuming that he's going to have Crystal Palace. He's going to have Leicester City potentially. He's going to have Brentford, a number of clubs, not just Brentford. So maybe it's one of those moments where one bid comes in and the next thing you know, you have 5 or 6 bids that come in. So either way, I'm happy for Haji Wright. I want to see him continue to develop because it just feels like maybe this World Cup came a little too soon for him in
Yeah.
his development. I don't think he had enough time necessarily to get locked in with the rest of the group. So hopefully this is what propels him to the next level. Like Haji Wright evolves into the next form of a striker that we need on the U.S. national team to have success.
Yeah, and look, we right now we're stuck in this phase in the U.S. men's national team where we just want everybody to be a world-class player.
That's
And
all.
yeah, we just want everybody. We want literally everybody to be a world-class player. And if they're not, we're like, nah, dude, not for this national team. You know, like, yo, you look at a lot of national teams, and I promise you, you think you know all the players in their starting lineup, and you don't. I promise you. And they're playing at smaller clubs, or they're not going to be world-class players. They're going to be solid career players. We're going to always have that in our national team. We're not going to always have. I mean, hopefully someday we have 11, 15, 20 stars, but you know, who knows?
If you had to do a depth chart right now for forwards on the U.S. men's national team to start in 2026. Oh, hold on. He's got a break. He said bathroom. Hold on. Well, I'm gonna pose this question to everybody in the YouTube comment section. We have a depth chart for strikers currently right now for the 2026 starting position as a 9, and we're playing with 1 9. Not 2 strikers, not 3, 1 9. What's that depth chart look like? And I'm assuming Haji Wright's on there, Daryl DK's on there, Josh Sargent's on there, and Ricardo Pepi. Is P Folk still on there? Do we still think people are talking about Jordy P Folk at that time?
No, I don't think so.
No. So I'm interested what is that? Does our guy Tim Weah finally get a shot at the 9? I see that. Ren, hey, respect. I've been dying to see that.
He's another player. Ready. But the problem is like it also depends on. I'd like to see players that play in their positions, right? I don't mind. I didn't mind that for the World Cup because I wasn't confident in anybody, and I'm hoping that Timo Weah is competing in the spot that he spends all of his club time, right? We're seeing him being linked to a couple Premier League clubs, some Spanish clubs, and things like that. What about Josh Sargent, right? Finally, we plant our mole with David Wagner in at Norwich, who's like, yeah, I know him from the Bundesliga. All right, so eliminating this bias, like, yeah, I knew him from back in the day in Germany, and that he's a striker. He's wasting his time out there on the wing, which I love. Do you think it's going to have, like we've talked about a lot, a manager can make or break a career, and do you think this could be a big lift for him in terms of his, not just scoring goals, right? I'm just development in general.
Massive. If I'm in that locker room, if I'm Josh Sargent, we got a new manager, and you're probably wondering who that new manager is going to be. And the manager comes in and he goes to the press, not only to you, but to the press, making it known. Josh Sargent, yeah, I know him. Yeah, he did well in the World Cup, especially against Iran. He balled. I want him as our number 9. He is a central striker. Get that man on the field. He's going to be scoring goals for us. I'm hyped because you're going to get an opportunity to play the position that best suits you for your development, to reach your potential. And the way Josh Sargent played against Iran, he showed me he can be that dude. He can be that guy for us.
Yep.
So I'm bummed for him because I remember the first game of World Cup qualifying. I thought, wow, that was his best game that I've seen him play on the senior team level, but it still wasn't obviously what we needed. But it was the best game for him. So it was a step in the right direction. But everyone, Josh Sargent, get him out of here, blah, blah, blah. And it took him a lot of time because we're seeing now with Brent Aronson, it sets you back when you don't do well. When people slam you down with your performances, you don't get an opportunity. It takes a lot out of you. He had to build himself up. Man, this man's been through some ups and downs so far in his young career, being the guy for the U.S. youth national teams, competing like a man, beasting kids, to all of a sudden getting that team start in the Bundesliga, then the battle for relegation and promotion. So I think through all of that, it's helped him develop. He's now become a family man. You could just tell something changes within you. And my man was balling in the World Cup in that last game before his injury. And I'm always wondering what could have been if he started against Holland,
Yeah. Well, by the way, he was starting in the Bundesliga at 18 years old, like a big step at a club that, again, they sort of shambles while he was there. But generally, like when I was there, you heard about Werder Bremen in a way that, like, this is a Champions League club. This is a 60 to 70 point a year team. It's a big club, right? This is, well, when I was there, Ozil was at Bremen at the time. Like, it's a massive club and a lot of pressure. One of the things that I just read in here, on Timo Weah, I think people are saying like him sitting on the bench is not helping his development. And I fully agree. But the upside is the man performed in a World Cup. And that's where we're going to see sort of the springboard of his valuation of a club being willing to take a risk on him, saying, yeah, but what do I want with the guy sitting on the bench? Normally, that means you go backwards, right? You go backwards. But because I think he had a good World Cup, because I think he's shown some performances at the international level, you can equally measure and say, oh, he's just in the wrong environment. We can take a chance on him somewhere else. And I think we would be in a very different position if this was like a Brendan Aronson not playing and then doesn't get the chances in the World Cup. That's very different than Timo Weah now being on the bench, but after a good World Cup. He should have his options to make a move at some point. If not now, then at least in the summertime, someone's going to come in for him.